All right. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Marlon Chito Vera, who this past weekend at the Pechanga Arena in San Diego, California, at UFC Fight Night, Vera versus Cruz, defeated Dominick, the Dominator Cruz, by knockout, by vicious head kick in the fourth round. Mark, let me throw it over to you first. What was your reaction to Chito Vera's huge win over the legend Dominick Cruz?
God, I love this fight so much. Just the juxtaposition of the fighters and the fight styles was so captivating. And we saw it play out. Chito started slow as he tends to do. Dom came out hot. He's moving, he's landing. He's the one that has the round winning style, and he was certainly winning the early rounds. But in the midst of it, you see that power difference. It was always apparent the whole time. It was always right there. Whenever Chito lands one clean, Dom is dropping, Dom is getting wobbled. So that contrast in fight styles between the two of them was just so intriguing. Had you on the edge of your seat the whole fight. And then obviously in the end on this night, it was Chito who came out on top. He finally lands a shot so big that Dom couldn't get up. But there's a lot of different points I want to make here in regard to this fight. We'll start with Dominick Cruz. I thought he looked great. Like, there is absolutely zero part of me that thinks he's too old or too worn or too anything that he can't compete against these top guys. Like, I heard a few people say like, oh, like that's it for Dom Cruz. I mean, not, people on Twitter, I mean, not experts, but that's it for Dom Cruz. The guy's washed, blah, blah, blah. He looked fantastic in there almost the whole fight long against a killer. I have no reason to think he can't continue to compete with top 10 bantamweights. He's still stunningly fast. He was landing so often on Chito. And if Dominick Cruz had any power at all, he may have never lost a fight in his life because he lands so often, he just can't hurt anybody. But that man is still a factor in this division despite the loss. As for Chito, I friggin' love this guy so much. As a fan, it's impossible not to love him because first off, as everyone knows, the guy is the man, plain and simple. But secondly, from a fan perspective, his fight style is so incredible because you see him in there just thinking and calculating and studying and processing, and he's not throwing, and he starts to give you those nerves that maybe he's letting the fight get away from him and he's dropping the rounds. But you also know that, like, if it goes the way Chito intends it to go, it's not going to matter that he's dropping the rounds because he's going to finish it before we get to the scorecards. And it just keeps you like so on the edge of your seat the whole time you watch him fight. But the point I want to make on the flip of it, as much as I love it as a fan, if I'm a coach, if I'm Chito's coach, I don't love it. We are hitting a point now where these guys are too good at the top. And yes, it worked this time, but he can't keep dropping 2 rounds and forcing himself to either go 3-0 or to finish somebody. Like, how many guys do you know that drop early rounds that are champions? I can't think of any. I was trying to think of this earlier. The only person that came to my mind was Brian Ortega, who's fought for a title. He does that, but he's never even won a title. So when you are at the highest of high levels, and that is unmistakably where Chito is now, guys who lose rounds don't tend to win titles. So I hope that Chito can find a way to just tweak this a little bit, get a little more active, start a little sooner, because I think he needs it to truly reach the top. I mean, you never know if he just keeps knocking everyone out. Obviously, it's not going to matter, and who knows, maybe he will. But as a Chito fan, I want to see him find a way to not be in 0-2 holes all the time. But obviously here he pulled it off. The finish was perfect. Dom has always had those odd exits, like the big head movement, dropping the head. It's honestly kind of surprising that no one has caught him this bad before with the way he drops his head on the exits like that and kind of rolls it. But Chito saw it. He read it. He flicked the jab out to move Dom into it, and bang, perfectly placed head kick right across the nose. You see the nose break on the slow-mo. Good night, Dom. And the violent march of Marlon Chito Vera continues.
Omar, what was your reaction to Chito Vera knocking out Dominick Cruz in the way that he did in front of the 12,000 strong in San Diego?
my first two reactions were, "Damn, we are fucking good at our analysis." That was the first. And secondly, I'm a dumbass for having picked decision, knowing full well by the time I started watching that fight, there was no way Chito Vera was going to outpoint Dominick Cruz.
Did I say fourth round?
You did say fourth round,
I have the card
so
right
he
here.
had the perfect pick. Um,
Nice.
I
yeah,
also said
Nice.
very
round 4.
nice. I think I had a
Well,
lot of faith that Dominick Cruz would just not go to sleep, but at the end of the day, that
which
was
is
the only
fair.
way.
Yeah.
This is the only way, though, that Chito was going to win. So if I thought Chito was going to win, I probably should have gone by some kind of knockout at some point.
Dom
But
was doing his best to make you right, Omar.
yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, what we talked about last week was inherently 100% what came true. Because last week we discussed Dominick Cruz needs to be 100% with the game that he plays. He cannot fuck up with the game that he plays. And it's been like that. This is not like this is a new thing. And, you know, I would agree with Mark that I don't think he's washed, but I also don't think he's better than he was when he was at his peak. I think
Oh
he
no, I
has,
don't think that either.
but I think he has lost a step. And I think as a result of that, one, people have a lot more tape on him to study his movements, and it's not as neo as it was back in the day. This is not some sort of unknown foot style that like people can't figure out at this point. People have figured it out. People will probably continue to figure it out. Different people will have to do it different ways. Chito was never going to outmove him. Cody Garbrandt outmoved the shit out of him. Cody Garbrandt was able to essentially out Dominick Cruz. Chito was never going to be able to do that. That's not his style. It's not his game. His body frame, frankly, probably won't even allow that to happen against somebody like Dominick Cruz. And so Chito played to his strength, which was his strengths, his power, the solid strikes that he ends up throwing. And you saw, and I think I said it last week, that the man throws just as powerful as any bantamweight there with minimal effort. And you saw a little light check hook. Dom was on the floor, didn't know what was going on, got right back up, tried to get to work, but shut his legs off for a hot minute. And he did that, I think, at least one or two more times before he got cracked in the face with that kick. And the power differential was a real issue. And I think it's more credit to Chito that he didn't get discouraged by the end of that second round, because he was losing that fight, legitimately losing that fight. Whether you want to, say that Chito wasn't hurt, there wasn't a lot of damage, whatever, Chito was losing that fight. That was 2-0 going into the third round.
Yeah, he was down 2-0.
One could argue that Chito won the third round, but
Yeah, I thought he did.
one could also argue that Dominick Cruz edged the third round out too. It was close. These weren't blowaway rounds by Chito, even the ones that the one that he won. And even in that fourth round, one would argue that Dominick Cruz, while he was slowing down, still had control of that fight. Chito's path to victory in that fight was those moments, those opportunities, those holes that Dominick Cruz leaves open, which are very few and far between, but they're there. And he exposed them, I think, as best as he could, took advantage of the situation, and came out on top with a highlight reel knockout for the ages. I don't think Dominick Cruz should be done yet. I do think that he's still top tier as far as I'm concerned, but I do think he needs to realize that his footwork, while effective, is not going to keep him safe 100% of the time. And so I think he's going to need to do some adjustments against guys like Chito Vera, like we all thought his strength was going to prevail against the man's speed and his movement.
I came away from this fight with different opinions than you two guys. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as say that Dominick Cruz is completely washed up, a la a BJ Penn making his fourth comeback fight, and just getting dominated by a top 15 guy. I think there are fun fights for Dominick Cruz, but I think that he really won't stand a chance against anybody in the top 5 at bantamweight. So that being said, if he still thinks he wants to try to be a champion, then I think he might walk away. Otherwise, I think there's fun fights for him in the top 10.
You don't think he'd stand a chance against Aljo?
Against Aljo or Aldo?
Aljo, the champion.
Styles make fights. Sterling is not a guy who is known for his knockout power, so that would be interesting. Sterling's wrestling against Cruz's, footwork and boxing would be interesting. But
Sandhagen, you couldn't see him have a scrap with?
no, I think he gets run over by Sandhagen.
I'm not saying I pick him over these guys. I think he can absolutely be matched with them, and it's fair, is what I mean. Like, I think he still deserves these chances, is all I mean.
Yeah.
I mean, to his credit,
I mean, we'll
he
get
never
to that
really
when we match him.
he's never really been in a position where we need to fight for his credibility, right? Like, the man has always been willing to fight whoever's next and climb right back up that ladder. It's not the first time at this point that he's lost. It is, however, fun fact, the first time that he's lost a non-title fight in the UFC, which is madness considering how long he's been in the UFC.
Amazing.
Wild.
Yes. But we'll get to that when we match these guys up.
Yeah.
That being said,
Were you saying a take on Vera and we cut you off? Or
overall, in terms of the fight itself, I feel like one of you guys had mentioned that Cruz was in control. I disagree. I mean, he was in control in terms of, yes, on points, but I also felt like the whole time he was just being hunted and he was prey in there, and Marlon Vera was eventually going to eat him, and that's what happened.
I felt that from the mid-third onward. First and second, I thought Cruz was totally controlling.
And to your point, Mark, about Vera needing to correct the problem of losing, dropping early rounds, Vera and Dominick Cruz are completely different fighters in terms of their DNA. They're just, Dominick Cruz is playing a different game than Marlon Vera. Dominick Cruz is the guy, he's looking to win round by round by points. He's going to come away. He's gonna earn his wins that way, kind of more of a lunch pail kind of guy. Marlon Vera is in there fighting. Marlon Vera is in there not trying to win points. He's in there trying to fuck you up.
I agree totally, but he did the same exact thing against Rob Font. And what concerns me is just as he's now fighting whoever it may be, fucking Piotr Jan or whoever it is, I'm just afraid you go out there, you drop the first two.
Yeah.
You're not going to knock this guy out in time, and it makes you have to win 3, 4, 5, which is not easy to do at this level.
Okay.
Yeah.
That being said, Mark, let me just stay with you. Yeah, go ahead.
So I was going to say his cardio, Chito's cardio looked fantastic. Going into the fourth round,
great.
I got to say, Dominick Cruz, and granted, the argument would be made that Dominick Cruz was technically doing more output, but Dominick Cruz looked significantly slower than Chito by the fourth round, and I guess the results are what they were, but Chito's cardio looked fantastic. The man didn't even look like he was sweating.
He's also unhurtable. I know this one was Cruz, who doesn't carry huge power, but like even against Font, even when he lost to Aldo, the dude just doesn't ever appear to be hurt.
Yeah.
Like
he looks like he gets
wild.
like bounced off of a car or something. Like it's not even like he's like hurt, but it's just he gets pushed back. He's just like, God damn it, I'm trying to go forward. Let me go forward.
Yeah, that's exactly what it looks like. Yes.
Also, before we jump into matching these guys up, I have to say, feather in my cap, I had one of those moments where a thought that I had watching these fights by myself alone, a thought that I had independently in like the second or third round of this fight, Marlon Vera in the post-fight press conference, in those comments he made about Cruz that were somewhat controversial, saying that Cruz was low level, one of the things that he had said was he thought all of the movement that Cruz does would be better for boxing. And I have to say, I thought the exact same thing in the early to mid parts of that fight. I was like, Cruz reminds me almost of like a Lomachenko style guy.
Yeah.
So much movement, so much footwork, bobbing in and out. And I was like, this is more of a boxing style. And I thought maybe Cruz could have been, if Cruz went into boxing instead of MMA, he could have been the American version of Lomachenko.
If you
Yeah, it's
watch
wild because he started as a wrestler.
Right.
if you watch Lomachenko though, Lomachenko is way more efficient with his movement. Dominic Cruz
Oh
would
my
need to
God.
do
Well,
that
it's
for
different
10, 12 rounds or something like that. I mean, he slowed down basically by the fourth round, and Lomachenko is way more efficient. The angle cutting, what he does with his quarter turns, his angle cutting, and the way he's able to dodge out of high strikes like punches and hooks and things like that, 100% would be super effective when it comes to the boxing. Obviously, you can see what happens when people are able to kick and knee, but
I don't think Mike was meaning they're similar now. He meant if Cruz had done boxing from jump and solely focused on boxing.
he would have been the Lomachenko before Lomachenko. I got you.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? But it's just reminiscent of. Okay, let's jump into matching these guys up. Let's start with the winner, Marlon Vera. At 135 pounds, I feel like Marlon Vera really is punching his meal ticket to the upper echelon of 135 pounds, arguably the best division in the UFC right now. Mark, if you were the matchmaker, take off that awesome pride hat and put on your matchmaker hat. What are you doing with Marlon Vera next?
So this could go a few ways. Obviously, this weekend coming up, we're going to talk about it in a little bit. We have Jose Aldo against Merab Dvalishvili. If Jose Aldo wins that fight, I truly believe it's got to be him fighting for the title, and it's very hard to argue that considering he did beat Chito. So if that's the case, if Aldo wins that fight, I think you put Marlon across from the winner of Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley. Either you get a huge rematch against O'Malley or an equally huge fight against Petr Yan, and probably the winner of that one would end up being the next shot. If Merab wins that fight against Jose Aldo, then it gets a little more messy because who's going to get that next shot? It could be Merab. It could be the Yan O'Malley winner. It could even be Chito. He could go right to the title shot. So if Merab beats Aldo, it's going to be interesting who actually gets that next shot.
Yeah.
But if Aldo does win, then I think you put Chito with the O'Malley Yan winner.
Omar, any other names that you would match Chito Vera up with at bantamweight?
It's a little crowded up there right now. Everybody's either got something going on or, there's not really very many guys to choose from unless you want to start going down, which at this point with Vera's trajectory, you can't go down. So, the Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley fight, I guess, is interesting. Like, to Mark's point, that's kind of win-win either way. Petr Yan is going to be a fantastic fight for Marlon Vera to go with. And then if that doesn't work out, the Chito Vera fight is also a rematch that's, you could probably put that on a pay-per-view in and of itself without any title fight and it would probably sell. So there's some good fights to be had here. My initial thought was to have him fight the loser of the Jose Aldo Dvalishvili fight. Because I did figure whoever won that fight would probably get the title shot next. And then I figured Vera would get one more and then potentially go in that direction. That kind of did throw Petr Yan and Sean O'Malley out of the mix. But I also don't think Sean should be fighting for a title that quickly in the first place. Yeah. Bantamweight is messy right now, man. It's messy.
If Sean beats Petr Yan, you don't think he deserves to fight Chito for the next title shot?
I guess
Yan is a huge fucking win.
I guess it depends, though. Like, if he sleeps Petr Yan, all right, we might have something to talk about. But if it's some controversial decision or some shit, then
it also will depend. Both of those fights, the Aldo fight and the Yan fight, it will depend how the winner wins.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting because we really don't have to wait that much longer at this point. We've got the Aldo fight this weekend. We've got less than a month away from the from the TJ Dillashaw, Aljamain Sterling fight. There's a lot of questions that are going to be answered by that time. We'll probably have better picks at that point.
I'll tell you, though, if there's a world where, say, Merab just kind of out-wrestles Aldo, wins that fight. It's not terribly exciting, but he wins. Say O'Malley beats Yan. Are you going to give O'Malley the title shot already just off beating Yan? It could just, if those two winners happen, I think it's going to be Chito already. I don't think he's even going to have to fight again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really? Off beating Dominick Cruz. Wow.
Who would you give it to? You'd give it to one.
And it's not even just beating Dominick Cruz. It's fucking smashing Dominick Cruz's face all over national TV.
Yeah,
Like
it's true.
you know
Well,
what I mean?
maybe they'd give it. If O'Malley knocked out Jan, maybe just because of the fucking hype, they'd give it to him. But he lost to Cheeto. It'd be hard to justify giving it to him before giving it to Cheeto.
I'll tell you this: if Marab is able to wrestle fuck Jose Aldo in a 3-round fight, I give him credit for it because Jose Aldo's hips work solidly for a minimum 2 rounds. So
we just gotta wait and see. There's too much still to happen.
yeah.
Okay, it might be easier, and we might have more varied results matching up Dominick Cruz at bantamweight because before this fight, the past 2 guys he has fought were Pedro Munoz and Casey Kenny, and before that, the 2 guys he fought are no longer in bantamweight or even the UFC, being Cejudo and Garbrandt. Before that was Uriah Faber. So there are plenty of names for Dominick Cruz to match up with now at 135 pounds. Omar, why don't you take a stab at it first?
I have a feeling Mark might have a more logical pick.
Oh, mine is coming straight from the heart.
There are many.
I was going to say mine is purely sentimental, so now chances are we have the same exact pick. I want Dominick Cruz to give Frankie Edgar his last fight.
Get him in there.
I want that to be Frankie Edgar's last fight. Frankie Edgar said he wants one more before he's done. I mean, if we go an entire career without Frankie Edgar and Dominick Cruz having fought and being in the same division, that would be a fucking travesty. So
that's it.
I think that's personally one fight that I don't have to worry about Frankie Edgar legitimately getting knocked out to hell in.
Yep.
We can just enjoy some guys moving around with some of the best movement in history, with some of the cleanest strikes, get a good fight going on. I'd be happy with that. Send Frankie Edgar off with a proper fight.
100% agree. I know it's soon. It's November 12th. I don't know if that's too soon for Dom coming off this knockout. I'm afraid that it might be. But man, retirement fight, Frankie Edgar in MSG. As Omar said, we have these guys out of the fucking blue in the same division now. They're both active. Let's not miss it. Get them in there. Get them across from each other. If they want it to be 5 rounds, it's fucking 5 rounds. Please, it's Frank Edgar's retirement fight. Do whatever they want. Put them in there.
2 legends.
And there's no way either one of them would turn it down. Like Dominick Cruz is all about getting the title shot and working his and I get that. But
yeah,
it's Frankie Edgar, right? And Frankie Edgar, I'm sure, would love to fight a legend like Dom Cruz.
Lose this fight.
Yeah.
Oh, Frankie asked for it. Frankie said that's who he wanted.
Oh, okay.
I think he knew if Cruz won this fight, he wasn't getting them. But now that Cruz lost, Cruz, he's not in a position where he can demand someone so high ranked. I don't see why he wouldn't take it.
Yeah, it's a good fight. I really hope it happens.
It's just the timing. I'm concerned about the timing and him getting cleared after the KO and all that. But it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Fight that elder millennials would salivate over. There's one other name that I look at 135 pounds that I think could be interesting and could make sense, that being Rob Font. Dom Cruz hasn't fought him yet. He just lost to Chito. Rob Font is coming off of back-to-back losses against Aldo and Chito himself. What do you guys think? Could that make sense?
I like that matchup, and it does make sense. Yes. That would be a fun one.
So Mike was the one who had the logical pick.
Yeah.
It was Mike with the logical pick. Got it.
Because you don't want to go too far up the rankings, up meaning like into the teens, and give him like an up-and-comer like a Nurmagomedov or a Jack Shore,
right?
Or a Ricky Simone.
Agreed. That's what I meant. That I thought he should fight someone who is still already established, like a Rob Font.
Totally.
I think the only way he fights people because
curveballs there,
and I think the only way that you get Cruz to fight guys with names with no star power to that extent would be if they have a number in front of him. That's the only way I think you get him to fight those guys. Yeah. He's not going to fight Nurmagomedov when he's number 15 and Cruz is number 11, 12, whatever he is.
Right.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
Let's.